Hello, Browns fans. Welcome to the DawgLand podcast. I am your host, Anthony Jokey. Got Jackson McCurry. Oh, it's been a few weeks, but get back with Jack here and, talk about the Cleveland Browns. Jack, man, how we doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you got me.
Yeah, now I do.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Nothing like technical difficulties to start out. It's not like last time where my power went out in the middle of us recording, but, it's always seems to be something over here. How are you?
I'm well, man. Obviously, if you guys follow me on social media, you know last week was a very tough week for me, but we were gonna try to do something. Just I was not really feeling up to it, obviously, but good to sit back down and talk to you, man, because it's almost here. The season is almost here.
I know. I was able to secure some training camp tickets yesterday after a little bit of a snafu with their website. But I can't believe that it's almost that time again. I was looking at it last night, and the Hall of Fame game is 3 weeks from tomorrow. So that's how you know football is right around the corner when that Hall of Fame game is coming up here. So very excited to get in this and talk to you about the Browns offense. And, we wanted to kind of not only preview the Browns offense for the season, but kind of recap what has happened over this offseason. There have been a lot of changes, head coach, offensive coordinator included. Wide receiver room looks a lot different. The offensive line is a whole bunch of new faces. So I see we're already starting with your brother here. Jake, great to see you. Jeff, great to see you in here too.
Did I tell you about what I got my brother last week? real quick.
You might have mentioned it.
So I was down in Amish country, and there's always sports cards down there. And I found Will Howard's first card from when he was QB at Kansas State. So I got it, brought it home, put it in the sleeve, and gave it to Mike. So my brother Mike, who's always mentioning Will Howard, even though he's the quarterback of the enemy. But it's the running gag when we do live streams. So it's pretty funny.
Well, one of the quarterbacks over there. I'm curious to see how that situation is going to play out, and we might have to spend the day kind of looking at the rest of the AFC North. I think that would be a good episode to do. But yeah, I tell you what, this Browns offense is going to look completely different, and we'll start from the top here, which includes the brand new head coach Todd Monken, who has spent the last few years with the Baltimore Ravens as their offensive coordinator. Monken is in his second stint with the Browns, where he was an offensive coordinator here before, but now he is the head coach. Definitely not the expected route that we thought the Browns would go this offseason in terms of hiring a new coach, but nonetheless, he is the Cleveland Browns' new head coach, and definitely a change of pace so far with the way that he talks to the media and handles himself. Big change from Kevin Stefanski. Just, what are your expectations for Todd Monken in his first season as the Browns head coach?
Yeah, we definitely might monk around and find out, as Casey Kinnaman has put in the comments. But yeah, like I will admit, when we first hired Todd Monken, was not excited about it. Thought we would go another young and innovative offensive line, possibly Nate Schillhouse. We'll never really know how that whole thing was going to end. But I got to admit, I do love everything that has happened so far with Todd Monken, the way he's approached the media, the way he's been transparent and upfront. Like we thought we were going to have a starting quarterback at this point, and he goes, they've earned the opportunity to give me more time. And he said, we have two really good quarterbacks. Now we could take that any kind of certain way, because the old saying about when you have two good quarterbacks, you probably don't have any. But I have really liked his demeanor, his attitude, like I said, his transparency. We've seen what he's been able to do as an offensive play caller at the collegiate and the pro levels. But now he's the CEO of a franchise, and we'll see how it goes. Guys that have kind of been like him they fizzle out pretty quick because the shtick gets old. But Todd Monken, wherever he's gone outside of the 2019 Browns, he's been there for quite a while because he's well respected in that locker room. I know the end in Baltimore didn't go well, depending on who you hear, but I'm anxious to see how this goes. It might be a short stint, but I do think the offense is going to go on the uptick, and I'm interested to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, how do we feel about what he's going to bring offensively to this team? Because it seems wherever he's been kind of able to cater the offense to the talent that is on the roster. So what do you think with this team, with the whole brand new offensive line, new weapons in the receiver room, a very young running back group, and a quarterback situation that we don't know how it's going to pan out? What is he going to bring offensively to this team?
Well, we know he loves to run the football because he did it in Georgia, he did it in Baltimore, and I expect that to happen here. I think you're going to see the passing game go up a notch. I mean, we saw what happened with Kevin Stefanski, and the offense kind of got bland as the years went on, and I don't think it's going to be bland with Todd Monken. You did pretty much hit my nail on the head when you were going to ask me about this offense, because it's one of the reasons why I'm kind of down on the Browns heading into the season, just because we're a young roster offensively, brand new pieces are on the offensive line and in the wide receiver room, and the quarterback position is totally up in the air. So I expect growing pains at the start of the season. Now, hopefully those growing pains turned into down the stretch where we're looking like a competent and steady NFL offense that puts points on the board. But to be honest, I don't know what to expect, because we don't really know what kind of offense he's fully going to run here, just because other places he's had different quarterbacks, which makes me feel good that he's got adaptability. But I do think we are going to run the football big time.
Yeah, I think running the football is a good way to kind of calm down and mitigate some of the other issues that are on an offense. Now, you really hope that the brand new offensive line will be able to put things together. But you talk about running the football, they brought in the run game coordinator along with Todd Monken in Baltimore and Travis Switzer. He was doing that for the last 2 seasons. So if there's any signs that point to this team, getting back to, you would say its roots, and the Browns should always be a running football team. It kind of is signified by the hiring of Munkin and then him bringing on Travis Switzer as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you saw it during OTAs and mini camp. Like they brought in some zone read concepts, which makes you think they're probably leaning one way at the quarterback position based on history. But like I said, adaptability, whether it's a pocket passer back there, whether it's more of a mobile quarterback, although we'll see how much mobility the guys had after being off the field for so long. But bringing Switzer on, obviously he was rising through the coaching ranks in the Baltimore system. So very well thought of. Has Northeast Ohio roots as well. So I'm anxious to see what he's going to bring to help Munkin expand this offense out, make it more adaptable to the talent we have. But obviously, he's been an understudy of Munkin for years, and Munkin thought highly of him enough to bring him along to his staff in Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this run game turns out here, especially with the two young running backs that we have. This newer offensive line. So you always get excited. Passing plays are flashy, but you get excited when you can just bully people by running the football. So I'm hoping that we can somewhat get back to that this season. When you look at this quarterback room, and it is the biggest question that this franchise has had for a very long time, and it's the biggest thing that they have to figure out this year, because you have to figure out whether or not the quarterback of the future of this team is on this roster currently, while also figuring out in this upcoming draft there are 5 or 6 guys that can go in the first round next year. So this is the biggest question that the Browns have to figure out here, and unfortunately, we're heading into year 10 of this podcast, and we're still trying to figure that out. They brought in Taylor Green to add to Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel as well. And I guess the biggest question I have for you with this quarterback room is, do you see the quarterback of the future on this roster, and do you expect us to find that out this season?
Part of me hopes it's the guy that's right now QB2, Shedeur Sanders, because that would make things a lot easier and give us more flexibility in terms of upgrading this roster going into 2027. But honestly, it's a no until he proves it or somebody else proves it, whether it's Gabriel, Green, whoever. The quarterback of the future is not on this roster. Like, I like Shedeur Sanders. He showed a ton of flashes in those 7 starts last year, but he also showed a lot of things that he needs to work on. We've heard his footwork has improved this offseason. He's been busting his butt, whether it's in Berea or whether he's back home in Texas. Like, the guy's putting in the work. You can't deny that. But we'll see how it is. I think the fact, Anthony, that Munkin didn't name a starter last month after minicamp tells me that, they were probably thinking it was going to be Deshaun just because of his experience in multiple offenses and his ability to be in multiple offenses, and he had the veteran edge. But I think Shedeur probably closed the gap enough to where Munkin goes, we'll get these guys back in late July, and we'll see how it goes once the pads come on. And then maybe after the first preseason game, I'll make the determination there. But when you're looking at the future of this position, I think it's still to be determined.
What do you think the timeline is to name a starting quarterback? I am kind of the mind that it'll be named before those joint practices with Buffalo in the future, because a lot of people, a lot of teams have been treating those joint practices as a glorified scrimmage and a preseason game rather than the actual game that gets played that week. Do you expect it to be during that, or even after that week with Buffalo after the game?
No, I'd say probably after the first preseason game. I think once we get the pads on, you see how Deshaun looks. You see how Shador looks, and then once the bullets start flying, you got tackling sessions and seeing how they get after a live pass rush in training camp. I think you're going to know right away who's going to be the starter. And I don't think Munkin wants to wait. I think he wants to get this offense to gel on all levels and get a quarterback to be QB1 and then just go with it. And if it's Deshaun and he's your quarterback for the first few weeks of the season and he's not showing much progress, then you throw Shador in there. You can't do the opposite, honestly. If you're doing the opposite, then the season's completely over and you're moving towards 2027. So whether it's Deshaun, whether it's Shador, I think we'll know very quickly in training camp and then let the season play out and we'll see how it goes from there.
I know who you prefer to start. Who do you think will start when the season comes around here?
If you ask me today, it's Deshaun Watson. And honestly, I don't care who the starting quarterback is going to be because like I said, the quarterback position is to be determined. We will see how it all shakes out. But I'm of the mindset that the quarterback's not on the roster. I really want to see Shador earn it and win the job and show strides as a quarterback because, like I said, it makes things a lot easier in 2027. But I do think as of now, and obviously things can change in a month, but I think Deshaun's probably gonna be the starting quarterback.
You figure it out this year, then maybe you go get a Jeremiah Smith next draft, which would be insane to add to this roster.
I won't be mad.
No, not at all. Plus, having 2 first-round picks is certainly a possibility there. But yeah, I'm with you. I would prefer Shador to start. I just want to see what he has. Give him as much time out there as you can. But I think that as of right now, this is Watson's spot to lose. And, if Shador takes that from him in this preseason, then, go right ahead and go forward with it. And if that's the case, I would rather, Watson kind of be like the third guy. I'm sure they wouldn't do that, but because I don't think there's really at any point you could put him out there. History says with this team, though, you go through 3 or 4 starting quarterbacks in a season, so I would imagine at some point this year he'll play. So we'll see with that. All right, looking at the running back room, which both you and I kind of want the Browns to get back to running the football. Quinshon Judkins coming back from his injury last season. Dylan Sampson entering, his second year as well in the league. So excited to see that. Obviously, the offensive line is what it is, but this team did lose Jerome Ford in free agency, which I don't think is a big thing in the grand scheme of things for this running back room. What are your overall thoughts with the 2 main guys, Judkins and Sampson here?
I mean, I liked what I saw out of the rookie year. I think, despite a bad offensive line, I think Judkins showed plenty of flashes before his season-ending injury. And, Dylan Sampson, I thought at times they didn't utilize him properly. Now, he's obviously not going to be a 3-down back, I think, as of now, unless he makes major strides going forward. But I think he's a guy that you can utilize as a weapon. Somebody like maybe a Duke Johnson. Browns fans remember how he was during his tenure year. I think he was a playmaker if utilized properly. And I think Dylan Sampson can be that. We saw that in the Las Vegas game on the screen pass from Shador, taking it 65 yards or so to the house. Like, I think he's got that capability. But obviously that was a deep running back class last year, and the Browns took 2 because I think they knew how strong the depth was, and taking 2 running backs in that draft was solid. And if those are your 1-2 guys going forward here for the next couple of years, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think with the upgraded offensive line, we'll see how Judkins looks post-injury. Hopefully he's good to go once training camp gets started. And I love his potential to be one of the best backs in the league here for the next coming years, barring any more injuries.
Now, I'm not comparing Quinshon Judkins to Derrick Henry here because there isn't that comparison. But the Ravens did have a 1-2 punch with Henry and KJ Hill over the last couple of seasons. How much of that do you think Munkin can bring what they were able to do successfully to the Browns with Judkins and Dylan Sampson?
I mean, I can see it. Obviously, I think Judkins is that power back with some speed, much like a Derrick Henry. Obviously, like you said, there's no fair comparison between the two just because Henry's been out of this world since his days in high school. But Judkins has that big play ability, and he's a guy that in between the tackles can get you 4 or 5 yards of carry. And then Justice Hill was that change of pace back in Baltimore, and I think Dylan Sampson can be that, especially in um, the passing game. So yeah, I can see the similarities. They may want to get another back in this room potentially. Excuse me. If you want to run the crap out of the football, I think you might need another back there. I don't know if Raheem Sanders is ready for that role. Michael Burton obviously is more of a fullback, so maybe they add another running back during camp to the room to maybe go with a three-headed monster back there. But I think Judkins and Sampson can definitely carry the load for the majority of the season.
Absolutely. And how do you feel about him coming back from his injury? Do you think that he'll look just fine coming back from it, or do you expect there to be, some growing pains coming back from that nasty injury that he suffered last year?
I'm sure there'll be, some growing pains. Obviously, they eased him along during the OTAs and mini camp, and so hopefully he's good to go. It wasn't like a serious, obviously, leg break like we've seen from other running backs, most notably Nick Chubb a couple years ago, obviously. But I think he'll be good to go. I think the fact that you have right now Dylan Sampson, you have Rocket Sanders, you have Amani Marshall, who was a UDFA last year, in the room. So I think they'll be fine, I think, once the regular season starts. But I think if you're going to try to give him 300 plus carries, you might want to add another running back in the room just to be safe.
Now, I know you may come through the screen at me for this one, but Casey made a point there about we double dipped in running backs 2 years ago, double dip with wide receivers this year in the draft. Because we have 2 first rounders next year, double dipping quarterbacks and maybe figure it out.
There's other media personalities in this area that have tried to make that proclamation. We're not doing that. We even made that, I think, in 2018. I think there was people going, "Oh, take Darnold and Josh Allen at 1 and 4 or whatever." I don't remember what it was, but it was something obnoxious. But no, we're not double dipping quarterback in the first round.
That'd be one hell of a way to find out. I guess the whole dartboard theory: the more darts you throw at it, maybe you'll finally hit a bullseye there.
Yeah.
Mentioned double dipping with wide receivers. Go ahead. You were going to.
I was going to say, Casey brings up a good point. The fact that Judkins was showing some burst in the spring during OTAs and minicamp, it does bode well. That injury wasn't as serious as it could have been. And the fact that he's already back and running and showing that burst means he should be good to go once camp starts.
Yeah, and maybe with the way that the Brown season went last year, just taking that extra precaution and not rushing anything, and glad to have him back this season though, and I'm very excited to see what he's able to do. We did mention double dipping in wide receivers in the draft this year, and the whole wide receiver room does look different for Cleveland this season. And I'm excited to have Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston on this team with a growing Isaiah Bond, who seems to have had a really good spring practice. And obviously you have Jerry Jeudy there as well. When you look at this wide receiving core, there's a trio of young guys with Boston, Concepcion, and Bond. Can any of these guys take the leap to be your number one guy? And can you figure that out with the quarterback situation that we have currently?
Yeah, I think so. Because, obviously we've seen it over the years. Guys can emerge in the wide receiver room with not so good quarterbacks. Josh Gordon, we saw it in 2013. He had Whedon, Hoyer, and Campbell, and had one of the most legendary wide receiver seasons of all time. Braylon Edwards. Need I say more? With Derek Anderson, Charlie Fry, Trent Dilfer, it didn't matter. You threw the ball to him. It wasn't always coming down with a catch or a big play, but he showed that big play ability could be had, even though there was subpar quarterback play, minus 2007, of course. Can they do it? Yes. The one guy that I think can do it, out of the young guys is Denzel Boston. He's big, he's athletic, he makes the contested catches. Uh, he's got some speed. He's not like world class speed like a Concepcion or an Isaiah Bond, but he can get down the field. And I think out of those young guys, I think he's the one with the most ability to be a wide receiver one at this level in the NFL. Uh, we remember draft night. I was not excited about the Concepcion pick as much because there was other wide receivers I liked, including Boston. But the fact that we came back night 2 and got Denzel Boston and that we double dipped at receiver when we've been begging for that for years just showed that like Andrew Berry understood the assignment, like Casey said in the comments. Like he knew we had a double dip at receiver and we got 2 really good up and coming prospects that I think could be our 1-2 punch, hopefully for the next decade, because they both got the talent to do it. But if you had to give me one to be wide receiver one, it's Denzel Boston.
So is there going to be an odd man out here? Because you would generally think that they'll go with 3 receivers most of the time, along with 1 tight end, 1 running back. I mentioned 4 guys there with Bond, Boston, Concepcion, and Judy. Is there a guy that is maybe on the outside looking in, or is this just going to be a full-on competition here, and the best 3 guys will go out there, and somebody's going to get left behind in the end?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, there's going to be a guy that gets less targets, less plays, and it's probably going to be, if you had to make the guess, it's Isaiah Bond. But I mean, it's not like he's not talented because Isaiah Bond is talented. Like I mentioned, he's got world class speed. His hands, it looked like they have improved based on what we saw in the springtime. But you're paying Jerry Jeudy a lot of money. You invested top 40 picks in Boston and Concepcion. Like Isaiah Bond's the odd man out of that rotation, but he's going to make this team. And he's going to have, I'm sure, a package of plays to utilize his playmaking ability. I'm sure Todd Monken does not want to keep him on the sidelines. And I'm sure there'll be plays where we have 4 receivers out there and perhaps 5 when you throw in one of the tight ends or the tight end that's in that room. But, yeah, I mean, out of those guys, it's Isaiah Bond. But I think he's going to make an impact on this team because he's going to remind me of a guy like a Zay Flowers, a guy like a Tylan Wallace who Monken had in Baltimore, and who's here and could be like the last wide receiver in the room just because of his special teams ability. But that's not to sell Isaiah Bond short because he can be a playmaker, and I think he's going to have an increased role than what he did last season with the Browns.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Tylan Wallace here in a second. Obviously, the Browns brought him in this offseason. But how about the other guys that have been on this team? Cedric Tillman, Gage Lavardane, Jamari Thrash, Malachi Corey, Luke Floria, who had a great training camp last season. Any of those guys going to make a difference in this wide receiver room, or is the talent just that much separated between those top few guys and Corley and Tillman, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, the floor of the room has been raised, and there's going to be surprise cuts. There's going to be disappointing cuts. I mean, when you see these articles of like who's on the hot seat on NFL rosters, and Cedric Tillman's the guy for the Cleveland Browns, I think it just shows that the floor of the room has been raised. And obviously he showed flashes a couple years ago. There was a couple game stretch where it looked like Tillman had finally turned the corner, and then he had that devastating concussion. And unfortunately, like, he's probably going to be the odd man out. I think they're probably only going to carry 6, maybe 7. That wasn't even a pun. I'm trying to make a pun, but you just look at the depth in this room, and I think Aaron Anderson's going to probably be that guy this year because he's got some playmaking ability to where Brown fans are going to fall in love with him during the preseason, and then he's going to be cut. Hopefully we get him to the practice squad, but that's just like, it's going to be tough. Like Malachi Corley showed flashes last year. He's probably going to be on the bubble. You mentioned Floria and Larvadan. They were the camp darlings last year, and it just becomes a numbers game. And unfortunately, some guys are going to have to get cut because the room is deeper than it's been in years.
You see 6 guys making it out on the final roster. What are your thoughts here?
If I had to predict right now, the wide receiver room, it's Judy, Concepcion, Boston, Bond. I'll go Tylan Wallace, and then I'd probably go it'd probably come down to Corley and Jamari Thrash, which Jamari Thrash probably surprised some people, but I know he's been working with the quarterbacks all off season, and I could see him having that edge just because of that. He's a guy that these quarterbacks have brought in to help to like work out with, and he's obviously developing some chemistry with them. So I could see him being the surprise wide receiver 6 when it's all said and done.
Yeah, Casey said there that hopefully Bond adding some muscle to his frame will translate this season. Yeah, I mean he came in to the spring with a lot more muscle, a great new haircut, and dye color, just a whole new person, and he seemed to really excel in the spring. So I'm excited to see what he's able to bring to this team this year, and hopefully can develop with whoever the quarterback is into a legit NFL receiver. I know, he had all the talent in college and he had his issues, and the Browns were able to, get him really late, last off season. So excited to see, all this hard work that he's put in this off season, and what he could bring to the team this year.
Absolutely.
All right. Looking at the tight end room, the Browns lost David Njoku, which his Chief has been on this team for a very long time, and I guess he would have been the last, other than Joe Batonio, the last offensive player from the Browns' playoff win in Pittsburgh in 2021. So it's always tough to see somebody like that go, but they brought in Joe Royer and Jack Stoll as well. Obviously, Harold Fannin had a tremendous rookie season last year, along with the other amazing rookie class that Barry had last year for this team. So my question to you is, we have seen Monken be successful in Baltimore with the legs of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and two tight ends at times. Is there between Royer and Stoll or somebody else, can somebody step up to uh, match that kind of production alongside Harold Fannin on this offense?
Yeah, I'm really curious because we lost Njoku, obviously, like you said, and right now it's just Harold Vannon, and you got guys that Royers or Stoll's been in the league for several years, was with Philly for a long time. Last year he's with New Orleans, but really just hasn't got enough targets to like make you say like that guy can be a contributor and be like that tight end too, like Monken utilized in Baltimore for many years. Royer, obviously we like what we saw on tape at Cincinnati, but he's just a guy that, is going to be fighting for a roster spot, obviously. And Blake Whitehart's been here as well with the Browns the last couple years. He's shown some flashes at times in games, but yeah, I'm really curious to see how they're going to utilize this tight end room because it just feels like it's Fannin and just a bunch of just other guys in this room. And I was kind of hoping they'd bring in some kind of veteran. Maybe they still will with the waiver wire towards the end of the preseason when cutdowns happen, or maybe they make a surprise trade to get another tight end in there to pair up with Fannin. But I'm really curious to see how they're going to utilize it. Obviously, we talked about the wide receiver room so highly, so maybe they trust Fannin enough to where he's going to make a big leap. I am curious to see how he's going to look because we did not see him at all in the springtime, which hopefully means he's healthy and he's good to go because his rookie year was so promising, and I think he's got the tools and the skill set to be one of the top tight ends in this league, and he showed tremendous strides in his rookie year to make us think he's going to be a playmaker here for a long time.
And it's also, a great safety net for young quarterbacks as well. If he's able to develop as we think he can, Fannin being able to, always be that option for whether it's Watson out there, whether it's Sanders or whoever else. So a rookie quarterback going into next season, being that guy is extremely important. And, maybe you run 11 personnel for now until – somebody like a Joe Royer or Jack Stoll or Blake Whiteheart can be trusted enough to, consistently throw two tight ends out there at times. I'm sure they'll have two out there when they decided to want to run the football. Maybe with as many offensive linemen as we have depth wise, they'll run 6 offensive linemen with one tight end when they really want to run the football. But I hope that one of these guys in the tight end room can build themselves up to be a second option. I'm very curious to see who that second guy is going to be.
You and me both. It's gonna be intriguing to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, offensive line wise, probably the biggest change this team has made in a while. All five guys expected to be brand new starters on this team. Offensive line wise, they brought in Elton Jenkins, Zion Johnson via free agency, Titus Howard via trade, drafted Parker Brailsford, Austin Barber as well. Obviously, losing Joe Batonio, Ethan Post, Jake Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin this offseason.
You
Lots
missed
of
you missed the offensive line addition, our first round pick.
Oh,
Spencer
yeah.
Fano.
Spencer Fano. I'm like, something isn't adding up right over here. But yeah, Spencer Fano as well. Um, but having this whole new offensive line, Jack, can go one or two ways. Either it'll fix the myriad of issues that we have had over the last few seasons, or it's going to be a very rough development as these guys try to gel together. Which way are you leaning towards at this moment?
I mean, I'm hoping it's going to gel together because it seems like our starting five is in place. Absolutely now after the retirement of Joel Batonio, but with Spencer Fano, Zion Johnson, we're going to assume it's going to be Elton Jenkins at center and Tevin Jenkins, who was here last year at right guard, and then Titus Howard at right tackle. I know Elton Jenkins said he came here to play guard, which means that you're looking at Luke Whippler or Parker Brailsford at center potentially. So that could, shake things up. But you hope like the starting five is set and then they can gel during preseason and training camp and then be good to go. The one thing I like, and this goes back to the wide receiver room, there's depth in this offensive line room. Not only did they add a bunch of new, like 5 new starters, but guys that have been here now become depth pieces. They obviously drafted a couple more in Brailsford and Austin Barber in the middle rounds of the draft. So you feel good about the offensive line. You just hope A, they can stay healthy, and B, they can gel once training camp starts, and you just hope that injuries don't happen, because we obviously saw last year what happens when injuries happen. It didn't end well, obviously, and that's why they had to address it so heavily the way they did. But you just hope they get the 5 guys out there and let them gel and build some chemistry for whoever the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah, it's been a complete reshape over the last couple of off seasons because there were a few years there where they really didn't address it much, and the offensive line was just getting older. Guys were retiring, whether it was Joe Thomas and now Joe Batonio. Other players moved on, so they were missing that depth piece. Now you have 10, 11 guys that you could potentially put out there, and I would imagine all 10, 11 of those guys will be on this team, be on the roster, maybe even 12 in terms of offensive line wise. But now that you have that depth piece, if there is injury, which it seems, hopefully that trend doesn't continue, but if there is one, hopefully the drop off isn't too far. But you want this O-line to gel as much as you can together with having 5 new starters, and maybe DawgLand is the one guy that'll make it only 4 new starters, but I'm very intrigued by this O-line and what's going to happen, and I'm not sure where we should set our expectations for this offensive line. I'm not sure what yours are, but if the goal is to run the football and find out who your quarterback of the future is, if they are on this team, this whole line is going to have to put it together really fast, so that way, one, you could have a good running game, but 2, also evaluate the quarterbacks and they're not getting killed back there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a great job of addressing the offensive line. Trading for Titus Howard before the league year started, I think, was a solid move. You extended him, and when he's healthy, which obviously has been an issue, he's been one of the best offensive guard. Like, he was a great guard and he was a solid tackle. So he's got that adaptability to be able to go inside or out if needed. Drafting Spencer Fano, which they were drafted him at 6, but they moved back collected draft capital and took him at 9. Signing Zion Johnson, which people are going to say was above his value on the market, but you needed to address the line. He's going to be the one to watch, obviously, and bringing back Tevin Jenkins, who I think showed some potential when they benched Wyatt Teller at the end of the year last year and played Jenkins. I thought he played really well. The only thing I'm curious about is center, because obviously Elton Jenkins was a good center in Green Bay, but he was also a really good guard. So I'm anxious to see, are they going to play him at right guard or Tevin Jenkins at right guard? And then how do you shake the center position out? Because if you go with Elton Jenkins, are you comfortable going with Luke Whippler, who's been in the system for a couple years, but as the injury bug has bit him, or do you go with Parker Brailsford, who is obviously a middle round rookie out of Alabama, but showed some promise, according to reports during the spring, once he got out on the field here in Cleveland. It's going to be interesting because obviously you want them to gel quickly. You play the best guys, so I'm anxious to see. And we got a new offensive line coach, obviously, so a lot of new parts and pieces in that room as a whole. But I'm anxious to see how it's all going to shake out for that group.
Yeah, when you look at this, offense as a whole, it always starts up front. I'm hoping that the quarterback situation will sort itself out. And as we sit here on July 15th, this may be a ridiculous question to ask at this point in time, but a couple weeks till training camp. From 0 to 10, where is your confidence meter with this Browns offense going into the season?
I'll go 4. I'll go 4 out of 10 because I do like, obviously there's pieces to like Judkins, Fannin, the rookie receivers, but there's things you're scared of, and that's the offensive line, how that's going to look, and obviously the quarterback position. But I'll give it a 4 because I do think it'll start out slow, but I think once things gel, once guys get comfortable in this offense, I hate to, if I didn't mention Jerry Jeudy, because I do think he's going to bounce back this year, because this is going to be a big year for him, obviously, because I think the Browns could get out of his contract after this coming season if things don't go well. But towards the end of the season, he was showing people again what he showed us in 2024, that he does have that big play capability. I think he's going to be more settled and relaxed in this wide receiver room because he has help. I think last year at times it didn't look like he had much, and he was the only guy out there besides Harold Fannin. But I think with the added pieces of that wide receiver room, I think you're going to get Jeudy in a more relaxed role to where he can succeed and be the wide receiver we know he can be.
When you look at everything on paper with this offense, you mentioned there are a lot of pieces to be excited about, and you listen them off there. Quinshon Judkins, Denzel Boston, Concepcion, Jerry Jeudy, Isaiah Bond. Those are things to be really excited about. But like you said, the biggest question marks come in the most important parts of the offense, the quarterback and the offensive line. And so I'm right with you there around the confidence meter kind of being at a 4. If one of those questions sorts itself out, offensive line wise, I would raise it to a 6. And if the quarterback situation, you're starting to get up into the 8 and 9 area. But I don't really see this meter going much higher than a 5 or a 6 this season. It's going to be, in my opinion, a lot of struggles trying to put things together, figuring out this quarterback situation. And I think the underrated part of the season is just, going to be this offensive line and putting that together. I think we'll see a lot of flashes of talent from the skill position guys. But offensive line wise, I think it'll look okay. In terms of the talent that's out there, but in terms of scheme and gelling and putting things together, I think that part of it is really going to struggle and hamper this Browns offense as we head into the season.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we don't know what it's going to look like schematically right now until, they get out on the field in a game situation, and we could see what kind of, concepts and the overall scheme is going to look like. And then it comes down to quarterback play. I mean, if we can get decent quarterback play out of Deshaun or Shador with the skill talent around them, like, they can be a decent offense. But there's so much unknown right now, Anthony, as we said about, I think rookies report in 8 days. It's probably roughly 2 weeks until the first time they get out on the practice field. I mean, based on what we saw in the spring, it looked like it's got some potential, but we still got a long way to go till September, week 1 in Jacksonville, and there's still a lot of work to be done.
As we head into the season, do you have any more questions that you're asking yourself about this offense?
No, not that we haven't covered. Obviously, I think we hit everything. Like, I think running back depth, tight end depth are some question marks, but overall, like, we know what the offense is going to look like. Well, for the most part, obviously there's some questions at some spots, but I think we know what this offense is probably going to be this season. I know there's room for excitement, there's room for growth, but I think overall we know how this is going to go.
Yeah, it's going to be, like you mentioned earlier, a very slow start, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to get out of first gear. If it does, that'll be great, but it's going to be, reliant on those two things that we pretty much hammered home here: the quarterback play and the offensive line. If those things can start to piece it together, maybe we could get have a semblance of a average NFL offense, and maybe score more than 17 points, a lot more than we did last year.
Yeah,
because that kind of seemed to be the threshold that unfortunately we were sitting at. So really looking forward to continuing to break this down here, and hopefully things will be a lot better than we think it is, and maybe we'll look back at this and you and I were way too pessimistic in our thoughts about this offense, but they've done nothing over the last handful of seasons to deserve otherwise at this point.
yeah. I mean, it's show me. Like, you can hype it up all you want and there's reasons to be excited. Like I said, there's players on this offense to be excited about, but show me on the field that the hard work that Monken and the coaching staff have put into these players in the spring. Show me on the field come September, and if I'm wrong, I'll come on this podcast and say I'm wrong. But there's a lot of questions about this football team, especially on the offensive side.
Hey, I think we need to you and I need to maybe do a better job in terms of like cataloging our takes, and so that way we can revisit them throughout the season. We're like, oh yeah, we were right about that. We were very wrong about this. So we might have to do that a little bit more. So that's something behind the scenes that we can definitely work on. But as we get on out of here, Jack, is there anything else that is on your mind about this team and this offense at the moment?
No, man. Just looking forward to this season, and looking forward to getting back on the podcast grind. Obviously, we've been off for the last month, but the season is approaching. Like I said, rookies report in 8 days, and the podcast is back. We're ready to fire this thing back up.
Absolutely. And I mentioned earlier, I got training camp tickets, so I'm going to try and get as much content as I can while I am at training camp. So be sure to stay tuned to the DawgLand on all the social media platforms, whether that's X or TikTok or Facebook, and go from there. I'm excited to try to pump out some content. The handle there is the DawgLand. Jack's handle is Jack McCurry08, and mine is at Anthony Jokey. So be sure to give us all a follow here on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. We absolutely appreciate it. It helps out the algorithm and all that fun stuff behind the scenes. So if you could like and subscribe to our channel, we greatly appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you then. And remember, as always, go Browns.
Go Browns.